Sevhead Creative at sevhead.com presents the audio web series Epiphany, Born from the Sea, written and produced by Don Sev Severance and narrated by Professor Proteus. Episode 12, Chapter 30, The Reward. It was the evening of the Silver Fin incident, which the crew would later refer to as the Vision. Sajah had just shut down her computer. It was late, she was exhausted, and a slight rum buzz hummed through her veins. She jumped when her phone rang. It was the Bali team. She could hardly believe what they were telling her. After giving them terse instructions, she hung up and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. It was going to be a long night. Several weeks earlier, upon hearing that Thoreau was in Bali, Sajah had enlisted the best surveillance team she could find. Within 24 hours, they were on the island, tasked with following Thoreau and uploading any intel, photos, or videos to a dedicated server. One of her top tech experts was managing Sajah's personal Thoreau cloud. Each night, Sajah had fallen into the habit of sitting alone in her apartment, scanning the daily reports and media while sipping a glass of Thoreau's favorite rum. This ritual provided a welcome reprieve from her grueling schedule, but she couldn't deny it had become an unhealthy obsession, a perverse form of entertainment. "I've become a high-tech stalker," she thought bitterly. The second day, after the Silver Fin incident, started poorly for Sajah. She sat down at her desk, still weary from 2 days of managing the trawler fiasco. The first thing she saw was a slew of headlines accompanied by blurry images and speculative illustrations. It's true, mermaid invades water kingdom. The mermaid, believe it, she's the real deal. Is it a hoax? Mermaid sighting in famous water park. At least, there was nothing linking the mermaid sighting to Pisces Corp. So far, she had managed to suppress any information about the Silver Fin disaster. The trawler's crew had been sequestered temporarily, and the ship had been towed farther out to sea, where repairs would be conducted far from the curious press. A week after the Vision and the sighting, Sajah was still mired in a swamp of corporate accusations, recriminations, and firings, all while facing mounting pressure to develop a plan. She hadn't yet decided what to do with the incriminating video of Thoreau, but at least she now had a bargaining chip. Her team had arrived at the scene mere minutes after the Samudra Hantu. The extensive damage, they observed, suggested the ship had sustained the destruction before Thoreau's appearance, with no evidence indicating he was part of any plot. The seas had been brutal, but the Silver Fin was designed for much worse. None of her experts could explain the unusual nature of the devastation. The surviving crew's testimony made no sense, and though some strange video footage was salvaged, none of the men, including the captain, had any clear memory of the events. The trawler's security cameras had captured less than a minute of the incident before the entire system shut down. The crashing waves and swirling mist made it difficult to discern any details. There was no audio, but the video showed the ghostly image of an extremely large and strangely beautiful woman rising out of the waves, singing in front of a dozen or more mesmerized crew members standing transfixed on the loading platform. Behind her, an unsettling array of unlikely fish leaped in and out of the waves, including a monstrous blue whale. If Sajah hadn't known better, she would have thought she was watching a scene from a low-budget sci-fi movie. The most intriguing possibility was that the singing woman was an actual mermaid. But Sajah remained skeptical despite her team's first-hand accounts. Each member of her kidnapping squad had been individually debriefed, and their stories and descriptions matched. However, the events at the Water Kingdom were equally unclear. A young surfer provided a matching description, but Sajah received wide-ranging accounts from dozens of other witnesses. Even with several hours of video clips and hundreds of stills, there wasn't a single clear shot of the escape. Sajah knew Thoreau had spent significant time at sea, often alone for weeks or months. If he had made such a discovery or had been involved in some bizarre biological experiment, he had given no hint. All contact with the Samudra Hantu had since been lost. Thoreau had completely disappeared, along with his precious cargo. Sajah's frustration was nearing a breaking point. Until she could locate Thoreau, the silver fin video would be useless. Her life had taken a sharp downturn since they parted, and she still missed him deeply. The image of the mermaid began to haunt her dreams. In her recurring nightmares, she saw Thoreau locked in a lover's embrace with this strange creature, swimming and laughing with talking fish, surrounded by an island paradise, or battling a sea monster that bore her own likeness. These restless nights were taking a toll on Sajah's productivity and the credibility of Pisces Corp. She knew she had to act soon. With no clear solution, Sajah decided that, at the very least, she should appear proactive. The board was losing patience. She convened her marketing team and proposed a campaign, a substantial anonymous reward for any information leading to the capture of the mermaid. She figured if she could find the mermaid, she would find Thoreau. Using a composite sketch from multiple descriptions and a great deal of artistic license, the media department put together an engaging and controversial video. They created a photorealistic 3D character that was then animated and composited into a short clip. The video was edited to give the impression of real-time footage. Fueled by the media frenzy surrounding the Water Kingdom sightings, Sajah's video went viral within hours. Ports and islands around the world became hunting grounds for tourists and professionals alike. Rumors leaked that it was Pisces Corp that had offered the reward, which, as it turned out, did nothing to harm their reputation and delighted shareholders with an unexpected boost in stock value. Back in the good graces of the board, Sajah could finally breathe easy for the first time in weeks. Chapter 31. Recovering. When Samu confirmed there was no one tailing them, Thoreau instructed her to switch to cruise mode while keeping the stealth program engaged. His ship was among the first to incorporate cutting-edge stealth technology, rendering the vessel invisible to satellite surveillance, advanced radar, and sonar. Thoreau had never imagined that this wise investment would one day be used to escape the cold-hearted schemes of an ex-lover. While Epyphany was recovering, Thoreau spent the time processing recent events and revisiting memories of his lost days on Ujjayi. Though he knew he had ultimately made the right choice, Bliss had been right. He and Epyphany were too deeply infatuated to understand what a successful union would require. In the months since, Thoreau had gained a deeper understanding of his true nature. His time in Bali had opened his eyes to the joy of living creatively, and the time apart had allowed Epyphany to gain first-hand knowledge of the world beyond Ujjayi. He felt they were now ready to face the world together. On their journey back to Ujjayi, it was just the two of them and Samu. Epyphany was intrigued by the Samudra Hantu's technology, so he set up a direct link and let Samu field Epiphany's steady stream of inquiries. Thoreau knew Epyphany was unique and highly adaptable, but her power of rejuvenation continued to amaze him. Within a few days, she was strong enough to spend time in the ocean. Each day, Samu would slow down, and Thoreau would lower her into the water. It wasn't long before she was swimming alongside the boat for hours, matching its full cruising speed. About a week into their journey, the rest of the tribe caught up with them. Samu stopped, allowing Thoreau and Epyphany time to swim, relax, and catch up with their friends. However, their casual conference was soon interrupted when Samu paged Thoreau. Please come aboard. There is some important information you need to see." Samu played Sajah's mermaid video. Thoreau was not pleased with the news. The video was convincing enough to make the average person believe they were seeing live footage of a real mermaid. Though it didn't look exactly like Epiphany, it was close enough. Thoreau returned to the platform and summoned the tribe. He explained the situation, stressing how every lunatic tourist, fisherman, and bounty hunter would now be on the lookout for Epiphany. He emphasized the need for a hasty return to Ujjayi. Thoreau regretfully informed them that he would only continue with them long enough for Epiphany to fully recover. Though he assumed his stealth technology was working, he didn't want to risk leading Sajah straight to Ujjayi. He would have to stay away until he could be certain that Samu was truly undetectable. Saddened by the news, Epiphany was disappointed that their reunion must end so soon, but she knew Thoreau had her best interests at heart. Unbeknownst to Epiphany, Sajah's relentless search for Thoreau wasn't just about money. As she continued to watch the Pisces reward video, she began to see Epiphany as a real threat to her personal happiness. Sajah had to admit to herself that she was jealous. There was also a deeper underlying fear she couldn't quite explain. Perhaps it was simply fear of the unknown. Where had this mermaid come from? What did her existence mean? How had Thoreau, of all people, made such a myth-shattering discovery? Epiphany and Thoreau spent several more treasured days together. Though they were hesitant to separate again, they both knew they couldn't take any chances with the secrets of Ujjayi. When the time came to say goodbye, Dali, Storm, and the others waited at a polite distance. Thoreau held Epiphany close, their eyes locked in a silent promise. Thoreau kissed her for the first time since their last day on Ujjayi, and as seconds turned to minutes, they felt the electricity surge between them. Reluctantly, they pulled apart and once again parted ways. But this time, they had devised a method of communication. Samu recorded the exact coordinates where they were separating, and according to Epiphany, Ujjayi was only a 3-day swim from that location. Once Epiphany returned to Ujjayi, she would have Bliss feed their bearings into the Gold Tower's mystical databank. At the very least, Thoreau could navigate near those coordinates if he needed to send her a message. From that distance, they were confident Thoreau could send and receive simple thought bundles. Chapter 32. Positivity. Thoreau watched as Epiphany and the tribe vanished from sight, his gaze lingering on the horizon. He was a man accustomed to solitude. While Thoreau's imagination was active and inquisitive, the chatter of society often felt more like a distraction than an enrichment. But now, memories of Ujjayi flooded his mind, a place where no time was wasted on artifice, where every creature lived in a state of heightened awareness. On Ujjayi, every moment offered something to engage the senses or the mind, often both. There was no need to anesthetize or alter one's mind. The island's abundant beauty and activity provided endless entertainment and delight. There was nothing to escape from. The number one source of human stress and unhappiness, money, was irrelevant. On Ujjayi, no time was wasted thinking about it. For the first time in a very long time, Thoreau felt lonely. At this moment, his heart's desire was to order Samu to turn around and follow the tribe back to Ujjayi. Instead, he retreated to his music studio. Booting up the system, he loaded his latest work in progress, which he had named Ujjayi Sunrise. Listening to the rough mix brought him solace. For the next few hours, he lost himself in the world of sound and the images it conjured in his mind. Creating music had a healing effect on Thoreau. It brought him closer to the universal spirit. Music was a pure language, a language of vibrations that bridged the gap between cultures, races, genders, and even species. He couldn't think of a single society that didn't express its joy or sorrow through music. With music as the common language of humankind, Thoreau couldn't understand why people couldn't get along. Since he was a young man, he had entertained an idealistic fantasy, a world where every gun and deadly weapon was magically replaced with a musical instrument, where battles turned into jam sessions, and where marching soldiers became marching bands. This train of thought put Thoreau in an optimistic mood. Maybe he could bridge the gap between Ujjayi and Sajah's world. Caught up in this wave of positivity, he decided to contact her. The Samudra Hantu had more than just stealth technology that allowed it to elude radar. It also had the ability to send multi-layered encrypted messages, voice, text, or email. After hours of deliberation, Thoreau came up with a plan. He chose to trust his instincts, even though he knew, given Sajah's history, that the odds were not in his favor. He composed a short message and hit send. As expected, the mermaid video was generating a lot of attention, but no tangible results. Sajah was temporarily relieved, fully aware that a successful capture would trigger a full-blown media circus. Despite her longing for Thoreau and curiosity about his mermaid, she would be happy to let the whole issue fade away. She knew the press and the public had short attention spans. Soon they would move on, and maybe she could too. Sajah managed to extricate herself from an early evening business dinner and arrived home in a good mood. For the last couple of days, she had kicked the habit of reviewing the Thoreau reports. There hadn't been any signs of foul play since the silver fin incident, and she was thankful for the respite. Treating herself to a little after-dinner drink, she settled down with a good book. Light electro-Latin jazz played softly in the background as Sajah curled up on her couch, the sweet raspberry taste of Chambord lingering on her tongue. Her phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. She had turned off the ringer to avoid temptation, but decided to check it later. Just a few pages in, Sajah found her mind wandering. Laughing at herself, she slowly rose from her cozy couch and said aloud, "Oh well." Sajah freshened her drink, grabbed her phone, and returned to the couch. Drink in hand, she tapped the screen. The name and number that flashed across made her spill her drink all over the couch. She hesitated for a moment before opening the message, then took a deep breath. As she read the short note, her pulse quickened, her hand began to tremble, and her face flushed with emotion. "We need to meet. Reply to this number for details, but don't waste your time trying to trace it. And please, keep this correspondence between us." Once again, Thoreau had blindsided Sajah. She knew she couldn't ignore the message. There was too much at stake. But part of her just wanted the whole affair to go away. She longed for the simple days when she could enjoy her privileged lifestyle, unfettered by emotion and drama. However, the recent weeks without Thoreau had been hell. Maybe he was right. Maybe she did have it backward. Maybe everything would be better if they worked together. Taking him at his word, Sajah responded, "Between you and me, what is your plan?" Thoreau instructed Sajah to find an excuse to disappear for a week or more as soon as possible and to take a circuitous route to the Maldives. She was to share her plans with no one, travel light, and keep a low profile. He would book a room for her and provide further details upon her arrival. We thank you for listening to another installment of this series. There are many more chapters to come, so we hope you subscribe and hit the bell so you can continue to join Epyphany and her tribe as they navigate the stormy seas into the transition.